Hey guys, Sam from BallerBBQ here. This week I'm doing a bit of an experiment with some pork spare ribs. I wanted to see the differences between an unwrapped, a paper wrapped and a foil wrapped. See if there's a difference, what that difference is and which one I prefer. So let's get into the video. Okay, so here's my rack of ribs. For this experiment, I'm going to use 2 racks of ribs. I'll just show you me preparing one of them though, but they'll be exactly the same. So I'll just pull it out of here. And then to prepare it, I'm going to just take off any bits of hard white fat. I'll leave some of the softer stuff on there. And just take this membrane off as well. So then the finished meat will just fall off the bone. Be a lot more tender than having that membrane on there. Now it's easier to pull that membrane off with a paper towel. You can just grip it a bit better. So just using your fingernails, just pull out a corner and then use the paper towel and pull off that membrane. It should just peel straight off. You can leave the membrane on there if you want. It just makes it a little bit tougher. So once you've got that membrane off, just check it for any of that hard white fat I was talking about and just cut it off. This bit doesn't seem to have too much of that sort of fat, so I'm just going to start preparing it with the flavouring and things. So for these ribs, I'm just going to put a bit of Dijonnaise on as a just a bit of a binder to hold the rub on. You can use Dijon, you can use a bit of cooking oil, just whatever you fancy. You don't even have to put a binder on if you don't want to. I just find it helps that rub stick and just adds a little bit of flavour to it. So once that Dijon's all rubbed over it evenly, I just sprinkle on my rub. Make sure that's nice and even as well. Plenty on there. This rub is quite high in sugar, so it will form a nice bark on there. Bit of paprika and things, just for a bit of flavour and colour. But yeah, you can use whatever sort of rub you want. Then I'll flip it over and do the same on the other side. Putting that Dijon on, nice and evenly, rubbing it in. And then sprinkling on the rub. And then I'm going to cut each rack of ribs in half so that I have 4 pieces. And that will allow me to have a piece for unwrapped, wrapped in paper, wrapped in foil, and I'm going to put a piece on the bottom rack on my smoker, just so I can compare the top and bottom rack and what the differences are there. So now I just prepare the other rack and I'll see you out at the smoker. So out here at the smoker, I'm using my Charmate Lawson water smoker today, and I'm just going to put on some hickory chunks. I'm getting down to the last of the bag, so there's kind of small bits in there, which isn't quite ideal, but it will be fine. So I'm just going to put those, space them around in the bottom of the charcoal basket, And then today I'm using an Aroma Chef hardwood lump charcoal. Lump charcoal is quite good. It burns hotter and faster, but with the water smokers, because you can adjust how much airflow gets through there, you can adjust the heat, so it works out really well. I just pour the charcoal straight over top of that wood. I'll make a little bit of a dent in the top here, because that's where I'm going to light a few in a chimney starter, and I'll just pour those on the top there. First I put down the fire starter, light it, and I'll put a chimney with half full of coals on top of it, and I'll just let that start up and get those coals nice and hot. Okay, so those coals are hot enough. I'll now just pour it on top here, so that those ones at the top of the chimney start getting hot on the fire. Gonna heap it up into the center, so as this cooks it will ignite the coals and just travel to the outside. Now I'll put that center section of the water smoker on. It's already got the water bath in there, and I'll just fill it up with boiling water. Just make sure that when you're filling the water bath, you don't splash it over onto the coals. Now put the bottom rack in. Put the top rack on. And I'll put my lid on with the vent wide open and leave it to heat up. So once the water smoke is up to about 225 or 110 Celsius, I'll go ahead and put the meat on there. To start with, I'm going to put all 3 sets of ribs just straight on the grill, and I'll put this bottom one in as well. Now I'm going to leave that for 3 hours. I'm going to do the 3-2-1 method on these. And now I'll just put the lid back on and leave it for 3 hours, just checking that water and fuel level every hour. Now it's been 3 hours. These things are looking pretty good already. They smell amazing, but I'll just put a bit more rub onto them, just so that in the next step they'll just create a little bit more bark. So now I've got the foil ribs and the paper ribs wrapped up. I'll put the lid back on, just get the temperature probe out of the way, and I'll leave that like it is for 2 hours to cook. So 2 hours later, I'm going to open the foil and paper up and cook it for another 1 hour uncovered. But you can see how much heat is trapped in that foil, and moisture as well. The paper one doesn't feel as bad. No, that's quite nice. That's it is a little bit sort of soggier than the unwrapped, but nowhere near as soggy as the foil wrapped one. So I'll just leave that there for another hour. And I thought I'd just show you close up, if the camera will focus. You can see the unwrapped is really nice. Looks nice and firm. Good bark on there. The foil one is very tender. Yep. And the paper one isn't quite as tender as the foil one, but it is more tender than the unwrapped. So now I'm just using a Cully's rib sauce, and I'll just brush that on to these. So then when they're in here for an hour now, that sauce will just kind of harden and set on top of the ribs. Okay, spread that on nice and evenly. Once it's done, we'll put the lid on and leave it unwrapped for 1 more hour. So I'll see you soon. Okay, so that sauce has set. The 2 wrapped ones have hardened a little bit from what they were, because they were, especially the foil one, were a little bit of a soggy mess. But that unwrapped's looking really nice. The foil one, I'll just take it in the foil, and the paper, take that as well. We'll go inside and check them out. So here I've got the bottom rack and the top rack. They were unwrapped for the entire cook. They're looking pretty good to me. Bend in half. That meat's nice and tender. Just off camera there, but it is pretty similar to the bottom one. There's not a lot of difference between top and bottom, which is good. So there's that foil one. You can see it's really quite flimsy, and the paper one. So have a look at this foil one. That's just floppy. We'll have a look at it back on camera in a minute. Kind of missed the camera, but the paper one is much the same. A little bit firmer. That meat just comes apart, the bones just pull out. The bones don't pull out cleanly. Yeah, can't wait to eat these. They're really good. Okay, so you could see the foil wrapped was really tender. That meat was just falling straight off the bone. The paper wrapped was kind of a little bit firmer, a bit more flavour to it. And then the unwrapped the meat was much firmer, but the flavour on it was absolutely amazing. Where the other 2 just weren't quite as tasty. And then the foil wrapped almost tasted like it was done in like a slow cooker or a pressure cooker and then barbecued. It just didn't really have a lot of flavour to it. It was a bit mushy. So if you liked the video, if you learned something, let me know. Give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again next time.